Hey, what's good? Of course, our conversation. Give me about 10 minutes and I'll be right there. All right, let's get this party started. So, in our last conversation, we got a fix on emotions and wisdom. Combined with a couple of other previous conversations we had, they all sum up to this: the necessity to build trust and respect with each other. Now, here's the thing. Under nominal circumstances, we all actually receive a starting portion of trust and respect at our first encounter with people when trustworthy actions are shown right off the bat. Then there are cases where our trust and respect are mishandled, and we ourselves do that when we're not careful. The common factor when any of us mishandle someone's trust and respect is when we're in a state of emotional disarray. How about that for layers of cause? Now, there are some cases where sometimes we cross a line unintentionally. So what's the difference between accident and mishandling? When it's accidental and we become aware of the infraction, we are quick to correct the issue by applying the necessary protocols so that line is not crossed again. In the case of mishandling, the recipient does not care about the awareness of the infraction and they continue as if nothing is wrong. Now, here's also where some of the challenges are. Some folks mix the definition of disrespect with disagreement, and therefore demonize folks whenever they disagree with something that they advocate. In scenarios like this, there often is no infraction of morality or legally. There's just differing opinions. Are there some things where we can agree to disagree and continue the fellowship? Sure. And are there some things where the disagreement leads to parting ways? Yes. The issue is how those conversations are handled. And when they're handled wrong, it leads to cases of mistrust. Goes back to that one chat about communication and comprehension, doesn't it? See? It's layers upon layers of stuff. Usually these folks who are called out for their infractions and resort to denial usually have a common goal for that. You remember what it is? That's right. They desire to avoid accountability. You got some folks who will argue that they were just going through a phase at the time of the offense, and that may even be true. That does not stop accountability and consequence from running their courses. We cannot say we're going through a phase and then we're doing nothing to get out of that phase. At that point, we're not going through a phase. We're in a phase and we're choosing to stay there. You see how there's different context in those? So as we talked about communication, you got to make sure your comprehension is on point when someone's communicating with you. Their words and actions can give you real clues of where they're at. Yes, there are life challenges, but we're still capable of reeling it back in. We may drift off, but when we're aware, turn that wheel and bring it back. But when they let it all go and have no discipline whatsoever, then they're not trustworthy. You got to put some distance between folks when they do that. Some of them are quick to gaslight people for taking defensive measures as that, trying to make it seem like their negative actions are not a big deal. Well, who or what is defining that? Their ego or reality? Again, back to the notions of comprehension and emotions. And the bottom line is, neither you or them have time for that kind of dysfunction. But only you can control your actions, so if they not rocking with common sense and reality, leave them be. And guess what? That applies to both platonic and intimate relationships. And in intimate relationships, if either party has an imbalance between logic and emotion, which is going to affect their comprehension, which will affect their communication, chances are the relationship will fail. But you know what? How many people these days even understand what an intimate relationship is actually about? Do they respect intimate relationships? Do they respect common sense and reality? Do they respect the concept of love? Do they respect others? Do they respect themselves? If the answer to any of those questions is no, each one is a red flag. And here's the big one. How many people really understand the relationship with themselves? And it's a question many of us have not answered because some of us don't want to answer it. Why? Many of us are so conflicted with ourselves which then conflicts with our relationships, platonic and intimate. How many people have really been trained to really know themselves? How many people have really been trained on going about intimate relationships, let alone platonic ones? So you got people conflicted in their comprehension as a result of an imbalance of emotions and logic. Many of us try to figure it out, to which some do that through intimate relationships. The desires developed through conflictive comprehension end up being unfulfilled. That relationship gets cut off and another is started with someone else, and the cycle repeats. Some of it is learning it ourselves, but the problem I'm seeing is a large number of folks were not even given a compass to even start in the right direction. Some of them just had to do it blind. At the same time, we still have a natural sense to know when something is wrong. Combined with all the emotion we experience, which some of that is frustration, we seek comfort. But then once we experience some comfort, some of us then just stay in the comfort and try to forget about the whole process of growing and understanding ourselves. Some of us have come to trust our emotions more than reality. You ever heard of the statement, truth hurts? Maybe it's just me and there's a piece of the puzzle I'm missing from that, but I hate that statement. The truth only presents the facts, which is not always a case that it hurts. What about the other part of truth? The part of the truth that sets us free. So with that detail, what exactly is the hurting factor of the truth? Is that hurting factor really that the truth brought something factual? Or is it that we don't want that factual thing it brought forth to be of that status because now we have to readjust ourselves even though we talk about being flexible all the time? But who or what went forth for that action or event to be true? Or how about the reality of a person's demeanor being of malicious intent and we deny it? We are shown all the red flags and we ignore them. Was it really the truth that caused that pain? Or was it the individual operating in malicious behavior who mishandled our trust? What am I getting at? The fact that there is mistrust in elements that there really should not be. Some people do not trust the truth. And you've seen it. You may have even told a friend about their domestic partner having an affair or something like that, and your friend going into an emotional fiasco towards you. Oh, so that did happen. And how did they respond when you told them? They blamed you for it, even though you had little to no affiliation with their partner whatsoever. You were not even involved in the affair. That person is conflicted in proper comprehension due to emotion, and therefore chooses to abandon trust with reality and would rather trust a lie. You know those folks. Oh, that's not true. You don't understand them. They're just going through a phase, or they're just having a hard time. Even if that is the case, there's still a responsibility to correct ourselves. And when we refuse to trust reality, everything else eventually falls apart. Now, that doesn't mean to just accept reality and do nothing about it. That's the same as putting our heads in the sand, which at that point we're showing our rear ends. We can't deal with reality appropriately when we try to cover it up or deny it. And one of the things the truth brings out in us is where we are in our mental state, especially whether or not we are ready for an intimate relationship. There are people who enter relationships without actual trust, but to use and mishandle, and then try to justify it. Then there are some who try to give everything they have to someone they want to trust them. Guess what? We cannot make anyone trust us. If they don't want to trust us, especially on an intimate level, they won't, no matter what we do. And don't even get me started with using adult level interaction to gain trust. Oh my goodness. You got people that believe simply because their trust was mishandled, they deserve to be able to mishandle other people's trust. It does not work like that. All they are showing is that they themselves are not trustworthy. How can any relationship work when there are unresolved trust issues? And some of these folks try to gaslight people for staying away from them. You have the absolute right to get as far away as possible from anyone trying to manipulate you or control you. I understand sometimes it's not easy to let people go, but we cannot let that stop us from letting them go for two reasons. One, for us to maintain our own sanity. And number two, so that we get out of the way for reality to run its course, for them to be reminded misconduct warrants consequence. But it's not us administering the consequence. Reality will do that. By us continuously protecting people that are operating in dysfunctional patterns without any progress of improvement, we're just enabling them. And from an intimate perspective, that could be classified as simping. There is no healing in using and mishandling someone, nor in allowing ourselves to be used in dysfunctional mannerisms. If we want to feel better, then we have to get better. Having our fantasies fulfilled does not resolve the underlying issues we have. The effects don't last long. It is way past time for us to reestablish our trust in reality, common sense, and the real definition of love. Love works together with truth to tell us things as they are in order to free us from the captivity of deception. Love can also provide emotional care, but not at the expense of deception and malice. Those two elements are not love. They are forms of mishandling. You got folk out here saying love is fake and weak emotions and all that other stuff. Some of them go as far as saying there's no such thing as truth. But what are they basing that on? It's mainly based on their emotions and inexperience. If we're really serious that we are tired of being used and violated, then we need to consider who and what we are actually trusting, and whether or not they are lining up with the actual definitions and virtues of truth, love, respect, and common sense. Oh yeah, it's a lot of layers with this, so chew on that for now. And in our next discussion, we're going to deal with another problematic factor in relationships. And remember this, it's up to us whether we wish to earn trust or mishandle it.